For millions of years, the human brain evolved to survive a world that no longer exists. Welcome to Primitive Mind Lab, where evolution meets human nature. Right now, there is a part of your brain that does not know what year it is. It does not know about deadlines or mortgage payments or what that person meant when they said, "We need to talk." It does not understand social media or traffic or the quiet dread of an unanswered message. But it is running, constantly, in the background of everything you do. And on most days, it is the loudest voice in the room. You probably know the feeling. You lie down at night, and instead of sleeping, you replay a conversation from 3 days ago. You find yourself rehearsing arguments that will never happen, imagining catastrophes that almost certainly won't come true, second-guessing decisions you already made and can't unmake. Your body is still, but your mind is sprinting. This is overthinking. And despite what every productivity article tells you, it is not a flaw in your character. It is not a sign of weakness. And it is most definitely not something you should be able to just stop doing. The problem isn't that your brain is broken. The problem is that it is trying too hard. And to understand why, we need to go back. Much further back than you might expect. Let's go back roughly 2 million years to an ancestor of yours who had roughly the same brain you carry right now. Or at least the early blueprint of it. This ancestor lived in open grasslands and dense forests. No walls, no stored food, no way of knowing whether the rustle in the tall grass 20 meters away was the wind or something that would kill them. In that environment, what kind of mind survives? Not the relaxed one, not the mind that thinks it's probably nothing, not the mind that waits for a threat to fully materialize before responding. The mind that survives is the mind that anticipates, the mind that runs simulations, the mind that lies awake, metaphorically, and asks, "Wait, did I secure the camp? Did I check for tracks? Is everyone close enough? What if they're not?" In evolutionary biology, this tendency has a name, the negativity bias, and it is one of the most well-documented patterns in human cognition. The psychologist Rick Hansen describes the brain as Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. That asymmetry is not an accident. A 2001 study by John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago found that negative stimuli produce larger and more sustained responses in the brain than equivalent positive stimuli. We are, quite literally, built to dwell. Because in the ancestral environment, missing a threat was fatal. Missing an opportunity was not. If you walked past a berry bush, you lost a meal. If you ignored the sound of a predator, you lost everything. So the brain developed a very reasonable strategy. When in doubt, assume the worst. Simulate the danger. Play it out. Think about it again. And then think about it one more time. Your overthinking is that strategy. Still running. 2 million years later. But the story gets stranger. And this is the part most people never hear. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Joseph Ledoux was studying the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure buried deep in the brain. What he discovered changed the way we understand fear. Ledoux found that the amygdala processes threat signals before the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, even gets a chance to weigh in. There is a direct neural shortcut that bypasses conscious reasoning and triggers a stress response almost instantaneously. He called this the low road. Think about what this means. When you sense a threat, real or imagined, physical or social, your brain does not wait for your rational self to evaluate the situation. It reacts first and asks questions later. By the time you've consciously registered that something feels wrong, your heart rate has already risen, your muscles have already tensed, and your mind has already begun scanning for danger. And what does scanning for danger look like in a modern human? It looks like overthinking. It looks like rewriting an email 17 times. It looks like catastrophizing a medical symptom at midnight. It looks like replaying a social interaction and wondering over and over what the other person really meant. Your amygdala does not know the difference between a predator and a passive-aggressive comment from a coworker. To it, a threat is a threat, and its only job, the job it has had for millions of years, is to make sure you survive it. Here's the part that's easy to miss. Your anxiety is not irrational. It is misfired. there is a difference. Now, here is something that makes this even more fascinating and explains why the overthinking never quite stops on its own. Now, here is something that makes this even more fascinating and explains why the overthinking never quite stops on its own. Humans are not just reactive animals, we are anticipatory ones. Your prefrontal cortex, the large front section of your brain, is one of the most evolutionarily recent structures in the human skull. It is the seat of planning, imagination, and what researchers call mental time travel, the ability to project yourself into the future. A 2010 study published in Science by Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert at Harvard found that humans spend roughly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they are currently doing. Nearly half of your mental life is happening somewhere else in time. Gilbert's research showed that a wandering mind is, more often than not, an unhappy one. Not because thinking is bad, but because unguided mental time travel drifts almost automatically toward threat, conflict, and unresolved problems. Why? Because that is what the wandering mind was designed to do. In the ancestral world, a mind that could simulate future dangers, that could ask, what if the hunt fails? What if the river floods? What if the tribe turns against us? That mind had a real survival edge. Worry is preparation. Rumination is pattern recognition. Overthinking is your brain's risk management department working overtime with no days off. The problem is that this system was calibrated for immediate physical threats. We now live in a world where most threats are diffuse, social, and chronic. There's no single predator to outwit. There's a career to navigate, relationships to maintain, a future self to become, and a relentless stream of information suggesting things could always be going better. The brain runs its ancient algorithm on this modern landscape and produces what we call anxiety. And now, here is the irony at the center of all of this. The same brain that generates anxiety also generates art. The same mind that replays embarrassing conversations at 2 a.m. can imagine futures that don't exist yet and then build them into reality. The same network that spirals into worst-case scenarios is the network responsible for empathy, creativity, storytelling, and everything that makes us distinctly human. Your overthinking mind and your creative mind are not enemies. They are the same machine, just pointed in different directions. This is not a small thing to sit with. Let's talk about the default mode network, but briefly, because this is the part most science videos over-explain. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Marcus Reichel discovered that when the brain is at rest and given no external task, a specific network of regions becomes more active, not less. He called it the default mode network. And it turns out this is the neural home of self-referential thought. Thinking about yourself, your past, your future, and other people. It is, in other words, the place your mind returns to when nothing else demands its attention. Judson Brewer at Brown University found that in people who struggle with anxiety, this network tends to run louder and longer than in those who don't. And here's the key detail. The default mode network was not designed to stop on its own. It was designed to keep running until the threat resolved, until the predator retreated, until the situation became safe. In the modern world, that moment rarely comes, which is why the loop keeps looping. There is one final piece of this puzzle, and it might be the most important one. Humans are, at their core, social animals. For most of human history, belonging to a group was not optional. It was survival. Exile from the tribe in a world without agriculture or stored food was essentially a death sentence. This means that social threats, rejection, humiliation, status loss, being misunderstood, were registered by the brain as survival threats. And the research confirms this completely. A 2003 study by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA found that social rejection activates the same neural regions as physical pain. Not similar regions, the same ones. Your brain does not distinguish between being left out of a conversation and being left behind in the wilderness. Evolutionarily, the stakes were once identical. So when you find yourself overthinking a social situation, a message that wasn't answered, a group you might not be fully accepted by, a moment in a meeting where you said the wrong thing, you are not being irrational. You are running a survival calculation your ancestors ran thousands of times, in situations where the outcome genuinely determined whether they lived. The calculation is outdated, but the machinery is still running. So what do you do with all of this? Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett argues that the brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. It does not passively receive the world. It actively anticipates it, building models of what is coming next based on everything it has experienced before. And when its predictions are uncertain, when the future is unclear, it generates more mental energy around that uncertainty. This is why ambiguity is so cognitively expensive. Why not knowing something feels worse than knowing something bad? The brain prefers a concrete threat to an undefined one because at least then it knows what to prepare for. This is why overthinking has become epidemic in modern life. We are surrounded by ambiguity. Careers have no guaranteed trajectories. Relationships have no scripts. The news offers an endless supply of unresolved threats on a global scale. Your brain, doing its ancient job faithfully, pulls every uncertainty into its simulation engine and runs it on loop. It is not broken, it is overworked. And the first step, the only honest first step, is not to silence it. It is to understand it. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote that most of what we suffer in imagination. And what neuroscience has since confirmed is that the practice of returning, again and again without judgment, to what is real, what is present, what is actually in front of you, is not a trick. It is a discipline, the central discipline of being human. Not because it makes the overthinking vanish, but because it changes your relationship to it. You begin to see it not as a failure, not as a character flaw, but as a signal. A signal that some ancient part of you is trying, in the only way it knows how, to keep you safe. So tonight, when your mind starts racing again, when you find yourself replaying, rehearsing, spiraling, try to remember something strange. There is a part of your brain that still doesn't know what year it is. It doesn't know about deadlines, or unread messages, or tomorrow's presentation. It only knows one thing: keep you alive. Long before humans had language to describe what it was doing, long before cities, long before phones, long before anxiety had a name, it was there, running, watching, preparing, and maybe understanding that, really understanding it, changes everything. If you enjoyed this journey into the ancient mind, consider subscribing to Primitive Mind Lab. New videos explore the psychology, instincts, and hidden forces that shape human behavior. Until next time, stay curious.